of basically the same idea. And he even goes so far as to say that by Yosef it says, "V'yeru achav ki osu ahav avihem," right? That their father loved Yosef tremendously. The brothers saw the love that Yaakov had for Yosef. B'shvil kesunas or, b'shvil kesunas pasim, gam lo kol shvatim l'yed Mitzrayim, because of the coat that Yaakov gave, as the Gemara says, $2 of clothing that Yaakov gave to Yosef over his brothers. This brought about from his hatred and jealousy, right? The Amar Rav Yudan, Hayakosh Baruch, and what's going on over here? Says Rav Yudan. He says the following thing: Hayakosh Baruch mevakesh lekayam gezeres yadua teda. Kosh Baruch Hu had told Avraham Avinu hundreds of years earlier, or whatever, in advance, that the Jewish people will have to go down to Mitzrayim. There was gezerah that the Jewish people had to go down to Mitzrayim. How's it going to happen? So therefore it says, Vavi alil l'chol devarim ela, right, that Kosh Baruch Hu brought Elil, he set up a situation, a pretext to bring it about. Kadesh Yehev Yaakov is Yosef. So Kosh Baruch Hu, listen to this, it's amazing, amazing concept. How is it possible for Yaakov, a forefather, the father of all 12 Shvatim and the leader of the Jewish people, Maisa Avos and Labani, how is it possible for, everyone knows that a father shouldn't at least show more love to one child than to other children because of the sibling rivalry it creates and the Sinan and the Kenan and all the bad things. Which parent doesn't know a thing like this? Which normal parent doesn't know a thing like this? And Yaakov Avinu missed the whole point? Chas v'chalila, this is Yaakov Avinu, a Navi, who talks to Kosh Baruch Hu, and he wasn't aware of this point. Come on, we could ask these questions. So the Medrash says, you're right, he wouldn't have. But Kosh Baruch Hu made him love Yosef more. Kosh Baruch Hu imposed it upon Yosef, specifically, that he would do this thing and give him the coat. So that, Visnu Echad, so his brothers would hate him. Vimchuhu l'Ishmaelim, so that they would sell him to the Arabs. Yaduhu l'Mitzrayim, so that they would go down to Egypt like Hashem told Abraham it had to happen. Vishma Yaakov Yosef Chai Mitzrayim, goes on other examples, but the main point over here, Lekach Ne'amar v'Yosef hu Rabbi Mitzrayim Havi Noira Alila. And this is awesome, it's just overwhelming how incredibly awesome the Maisim and the Pa'ula of the Hashgacha Pratis, that the Kosh Baruch Hu sets up scenarios and situations that brings about certain results that seem inevitable, results that we ourselves wouldn't want, and results and situations that we ourselves might even avoid if we were in control of our lives to such an extent. And obviously, there's a lot to explain over here. What's going on? What about Bechira? What about free will? What about the fact that we can choose otherwise, right? So one simple answer is that basically the events have to happen exactly when they happen, where they're going to happen, as they're going to happen, but who has to carry them out? Who has to be the vehicle to bring them about, good or for bad? That depends upon our free will. Now, there's like an actor, for example, who, decides to become an actor for movies or whatever, and, decides to make himself into a good guy. And that's his resume. He's always acting as a good guy or a bad guy, whatever the case may be. People get a certain chush, a certain feel for what type of actor they're going to be in the future. So they perform in that capacity, and they might be versatile, they might not be versatile, but their resume will basically state what they're capable of doing. When someone writes a screenplay, unless you're a really, really famous actor, both in God's play or this play, then most screenplays are not written with certain characters in mind, at least certain personalities in mind, rather just certain personalities for the actual character of the play or the movie. And then later on, once the script is finished and they start casting the parts, they start looking around to see who might be the person to fill this part. So they get all kinds of resumes, they look at all kinds of movies and all kinds of examples, and then they finally say, that's our man, that's our leading lady over here, that's the one we have to use for this movie, or this book, or whatever the case may be, or whatever, right? But, so our free will is in determining who we want to be, what type of actor in God's play we want to become. And then later on, when God says, I need to bring a geula, who can I use for geula? I need a person who's going to talk to the king, a person who's going to take care of this thing and that thing. He's good for that. She's good for that. Like Mordechai and Esther, right? That's what Mordechai says to Esther. You may not want to be involved, but you should know God is going to bring about the Gula anyhow from some place. And the only question is, do you want a part? Do you want to play a role? For all we know, that's what you're doing here in the first place. It's exactly what it's talking about over here. And that's the main point. The main point is that we can't always understand the events of history. We can't always understand why God is merciful to one person and not to another. And why we think we deserve a break and God says otherwise. There are so many cheshbonos min shamayim, and this is only the beginning of the discussion. We have to go a little bit deeper in the future, Mr. Hashem. But our bechira, our free will, is to determine what role we're going to play in God's master plan, in His plan for creation. And the events, it's a screenplay. Hashem has written them. They're going to happen in a specific way. And by determining for ourselves what type of person we want to be, then Shemaim will plug us into that specific screenplay or that specific script for history based upon who we are. And that's what it means by Pinchas, for example. It says that Pinchas came and took what belonged to him because Pinchas made himself into a kanoi, into a zealot, like the Bnot Zlachet as well. The daughters of Zlachet, who became the basis for a certain halacha of Eretz Yisrael because they were like that. They had a certain love, the Medrash says, of Eretz Yisrael. And that love came from Yosef, because they came from Menashe, who came from Yosef, who was mishpah from Yosef in terms of his love of Eretz Yisrael, the Medrash says. And it came out later on in the children, and because of their love, they continued in them, they became the vehicle to teach a certain halacha about Yerusha to do with Eretz Yisrael. And that's what we're all about. That's what we're doing here, and that's what we have to be focused on, and always keep asking ourselves, what type of role do we want to play in God's script, in God's master movie of all history, and work on it, and become that thing, because God will take care of the rest, and He'll plug us in.